Hi, everyone. My presentation examines how stigma in service settings shapes help-seeking and caregiving experiences among parents experiencing substance use. In the first part of my project, my focus was too broad and tried to cover multiple overlapping issues. Based on the feedback from my TA, I narrowed my analysis to one specific contextual condition, stigma in service settings, and one caregiving experience, help seeking and disclosure. I also identified a stable structural barrier, fear of child welfare involvement. My guiding question was, how does stigma in service settings, particularly fear of child welfare involvement, shape help seeking and disclosure among parents experiencing substance use, and how does this impact caregiving experiences? This guiding question focuses on how broader institutional and social conditions shape parenting experiences. Rather than viewing substance use as an individual issue, this approach emphasizes how stigma and structural barriers influence whether parents feel safe seeking support, which in turn affects their emotional well-being and caregiving abilities. Stigma in service settings. Stigma in service settings refers to the ways parents experiencing substance use may feel judged, labeled, or monitored when interacting with healthcare or social services. Research shows that individuals often anticipate being seen as irresponsible or unfit, which shapes how they engage with support systems. For instance, Radcliffe and Stevens found that people managing substance use often conceal their experiences due to fear of being stigmatized, particularly in institutional settings. The structural barrier, the fear of child welfare involvement. A key structural barrier shaping help seeking is this fear of child welfare involvement. Parents may worry that disclosing substance use could lead to surveillance or even the removal of their children. Stone, as well as Roberts and Pies, shows that this fear can discourage parents from accessing care altogether, even when they need support the most. This is not simply an individual choice, but a response to institutional systems that can feel punitive rather than supportive. How stigma shapes help seeking. Rather than listing the impacts, I find it easier to think of this as a process. So, stigma in service settings creates fear, especially the fear of judgment or child welfare involvement. This leads to parents reducing disclosure or avoiding services altogether. As a result, parents experience increased isolation and limited access to support. Research by Stone highlights how this chain of effects shapes help-seeking behavior. The next slide is rethinking parenting and substance use. So I used a myth and then the actual reality of this context. Parenting challenges in this context are often misunderstood. There's a common assumption that parents do not seek help because they are unwilling or neglectful. However, research shows that stigma and fear play a huge role in shaping these decisions. Grant et al. Emphasizes that caregiving challenges are not simply the result of individual failure, rather are connected to broader structural conditions and lack of support. So a myth could be that parents don't seek help because they don't care, but the reality of it is that parents really avoid help due to the society's stigma and their fear. For my case example, I used the Canadian Center on Substance Use and Addiction. This example shows how programs can directly address the barriers we've discussed. CCSA's approach focuses on reducing stigma and providing non-punitive harm reduction informed support. This directly responds to the gap where parents avoid services due to fear of judgment or institutional consequences, and the overall goal is just to make help seeking for parents and everyone feel safe. Before and after support feels safe, this comparison highlights how service environments can change different outcomes. When systems are stigmatizing, parents are more likely to avoid help and conceal their experiences and have a higher stress. However, when services are supportive, non-judgmental, parents are more likely to engage, disclose, and receive meaningful support. Suchman et al. Shows that these changes can improve parental well-being and their caregiving capacity. Parenting in context. Parenting is shaped by systems, not just individuals, such as the stigma, institutions, and structural barriers that we've talked about. This connects to a key idea from the course that parenting must be understood in context. Rather than focusing on individual behavior, this approach highlights how systems, stigma, and institutional structures shape parenting experiences. And the key takeaway of this project really just highlights that stigma in service settings play a crucial role in shaping help-seeking behavior among parents experiencing substance use. Fear or child welfare involvement acts as a major structural barrier, limiting access to support. Importantly, when systems shift towards supportive, non-punitive approaches, outcomes improve for both parents and children. And here are my references, and thank you so much for listening.